Hello, my name is Teresa Tiguechea, and I work for Fundación SM, which is the owner of Grupo SM, a publishing group who started its career in Spain a long time ago, 43 years ago, no, 80 years ago, and now has different branches all around South America and Mexico. And I'm here because I want to introduce Sarah Mazzetti, who is the winner of our last Bologna Book Fair Fundación SM Illustration Award. She was awarded in 2019, and she created a book which we published last year in 2020. Due to the pandemic, we were not able to go to Bologna, as you all know, and we couldn't present the book there at the fair, which was our original idea. So we are going to talk about this book now with Sarah, and in order that you can see it during this online book fair. Well, thank you very much. Sarah, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm okay. I'm in Venice, even though I live in Milan. I just moved to Venice for some time, just to take a break from the city. So yeah, I'm good.
It's a very good choice. I think you are smart. Well, let's talk about your book. As maybe people don't know, but this award is related. It's an illustration award to people who are under 35 years old, to young artists, in order to support them in their career. And related to the award, there is a commitment from the artist to create a picture book, which SM will publish the year after the award is granted, and which is always presented at Bologna Book Fair. So we used to ask the illustrators awarded that to create a picture book based in a story, in a classical tale, or in a story from the folk of their country. And we are going to talk about Sarah Mazzetti's choice, which is very interesting. Why did she choose that? Well, can you tell us which story did you choose and why?
Yeah, so the name of the book I did is Lucilla, but the starting point of the story of the book is Thumbelina. So, like, Thumbelina is a tale that has been translated in many languages. Pretty much every country in Europe has its own version. And the version, as the request from SM is to work on a story, a tale that is typical from the country of origin of the illustrator. So in my case, I refer to Calvino's version of the tale. But yeah, the tale is just a starting point. And so the first part of my story kind of is pretty close to the tale, like at least the happenings are close to the tale. So we don't have 7 brothers, but we have just one girl, so that's the first difference. And then we don't have we have a contemporary family living in a contemporary city as the main protagonist of the tale. But we do have, like, I did write the first part sticking to the tale, meaning that we have poverty coming to the city and affecting the people and the city itself. And there is the situation in which the parents decide to abandon the child because they cannot support the whole family anymore. And we have the situation in which the family takes Lucilla to the woods and abandons her, and the same thing happening in Thumbelina, in which Lucilla brings a piece of bread with her and leaves the crumbles throughout the woods, and then animals arrive and just eat everything, so she cannot come back. But then my story becomes something completely different from Thumbelina. Like from there, the plot gets quite also a little bit surreal, I guess, because when we get to be in the wood together with Lucilla, that everything becomes very much imaginative, and her relationship to the animals and the creators in the woods become way more surreal. And then the ending is completely different from Thumbelina. Like the core of my writing it was to also think about what does happen in traditional tales and the values that are being delivered in traditional tales in order to deconstruct them and turn them into something that makes sense for contemporary people.
Yes, because the thing is that I think it's a very thoughtful story, the way you recreate it. As you said, the first part of the story is really similar to the book, to the original story, but with the difference that it's set in at a contemporary town, in a suburbia or peripheric area of the town. Any town in any Western country could be. It's not a place. It's not really, well, you're also using a lot of hand lettering, so in supermarkets and so in people buying, etc. But there is not a language in them. It's a mixture of different languages. You don't want it to be said in a real place, let's say. And besides that, I think it's very interesting what you said on the book and what you are saying now about how poverty in stories is a condition, use that word, condition, which makes people do strange things and even evil things, but usually they overcome and there is a happy ending or whatever. But poverty is there, something that passes by, and that's all. And then you were more interested in analyzing how poverty changes people, do make them strange things, and also you saw poverty come in little by little. It's like arriving until it arrives to the city. It's like a kind of legendary monster. Everybody talks about it, but I'm not really sure if we really know it. And it's really a very strong character in the story, which makes the real difference with the classical tale. So if you can talk about it, or you can give me your point of view.
Yeah, the idea was exactly to have poverty as a character in the story, not as just a condition or something in the background, but really build the first part of the book around this character, like almost a person coming to town and changing the people and changing the situation. So like the first part of the book really indulges in metaphors that people think about, or ways of people to describe poverty. And one page she's an actual old man, and that part refers to Enzo Iannacci song, actually, because we have this double page in which poverty is an old man with sneakers on. So that's a specific reference to an Italian song. And but yeah, in the first part, I really enjoyed writing that because it's a lot of just metaphors to describe what poverty can be to people. But like the other main difference that I wanted to underline or focus on is that in Thumbelina and in many traditional tales, well, in Thumbelina specifically, at the end of the story, basically the child takes charge of saving the parents from poverty and actually making them rich, which is something that I do know that it makes sense for the past, and like but like for contemporary people, that's a really weird value to stick to. So in my story, it's poverty stays. Poverty is really a character of the book. So the idea is not. So the idea is that is for the family to find a better environment for them and being able to be something else in another environment that can welcome them. So there is an idea of just not overcoming poverty through money, but through being able to be something else somewhere else. So yeah, and it's nothing specific. Like the story, at the end of the story, basically the family ends up living in the woods and actually transforming into nature things. But yeah, what I wanted to do specifically was to disconnect the core of the story from the idea of overcoming poverty through richness, like financial richness. So that was really one of the main things to me. But yeah, poverty is a real character in the story, and actually is one of maybe the character that I developed the better, I guess. The first part,
it's a strong one. It's true, you're right. Because I was taking a look at a book while you were talking, and for example, there is a very good metaphor when they ask about how poverty looks like, and they say it's like fog. I mean, you know it's coming, but you cannot see it. And little by little it arrives and it covers everything. And then also, I think it's very interesting the contrast you create between human people or human being or human condition and nature, like nature being open to embrace you, generous, wanting to share with the girl in this case, and living in a very nice way, and men who destroy nature, who just are interested in buying and in having a lot of things in money. And how also, because I think that what you said about poverty as a main character is also related to the criticisms that you make clearly to obsession with money.
Yeah.
How it is related to poverty since the beginning. So it's very logical that the end of your story is not a rich family living well, of course. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about your decision to show nature in this way, in contrast to human evil, let's say?
Yeah, so yeah, the main difference of the contrast is between so poverty basically can arrive, can destroy a situation that is very much connected to economic wealth, money. So basically, when Thumbelina arrives Lucilla arrives in the woods, we get to realize that in the creatures in the woods, the animals, the plants, and all that environment doesn't know poverty, because poverty cannot get there, because it's not an environment that is based on
they are free of money.
Yeah, exactly. So basically they don't even know what poverty is. So there is this strong contrast, and there is the fact that the character of poverty can only survive in an environment that allows her to survive, allows him, whatever. Poverty is feminine in Italian.
Also in Spanish.
Yeah, so to me
Florida,
it's a she, but it's not a she. It's a it. I don't know. So yeah, when we get to the woods together with Lucilla, we end up in a situation that is something completely different, and it's much more imaginative. And also from a writing point of view, when we get to the woods, we only have dialogues. We don't have an external narrator anymore. So everything just happens, and even the more weird imaginative things are just happening between animals and Lucilla and plants, and we don't have any explanation to it. And so yeah, so like the solution to me was to basically give the chance to that family, those human beings, to give up all the values of society, and get to a place where they are being embraced by a complete different situation and a complete different scheme of values. But there is a sort of silly discussion among the animals if they should actually have Lucilla's family in the woods or not.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a little discussion about it. But then they say yes. And so, but what was also important to me was the fact that in order for them to live in the woods, they had to change. There had to be a metamorphosis. They couldn't be just human bringing all their human habits to the woods, because that would exploit the environment. So they have to
adapt.
They have to adapt very strongly, basically, because they turn into something completely different.
And then you have there is a kind of tribute to a subtle one, because, well, you told me, it's not that I know it because I read the book, is to Metamorphosis by Ovidio.
Yeah. There is that idea. They turn into plants and animals in the woods, and yeah, there are quite a few references in the books to to ideas and other tales that build my culture, that felt quite good as metaphors to describe, and also I think that referring to something that is very inside our culture as Western people makes it even more easy for the reader to figure out what happens. Like if you see like a family that is a man and a woman and a child that turns into two trees and little animals, you know what's happening. You're able to understand straightforward that kind of metamorphosis means that they are becoming part of a new environment, because you've been told that story already. So yeah.
Sarah, do you want us to share your PDF of the book?
Yes.
In order that we can talk about your style and how did you go for this very particular style? Thank you. That's great. Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
The party.
So yeah, I'll go to the beginning. So,
yeah, great.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, this is the setting, which is my idea of a Western city, like the suburban areas of Western cities in general. I guess it could be anywhere in Europe, at least. Yeah, you have a supermarket, you have like selling buildings and stuff, you have park and all that. And this is the reference to the Iannacci song. So this is the first representation of poverty. There is a child that asks the mother, what does poverty looks like? And the mother kind of invents a little story in which poverty is this old man with the sneakers on. And then, yeah, this is the part of the fog in which poverty is represented not as a... so there are these two characters wondering what is poverty like. And in this case, the metaphor of the fog I think is useful to describe poverty as something that comes to the city and sort of hides other things. And here is poverty as an animal that bites the city from inside. And yeah, and then it goes on, and here
bites everything.
Yeah, we start to see what happens to the people and the things in town after the arrival of poverty. So we have fruits turning into stones, people becoming poor,
selling whatever they have.
Yeah, and people, becoming extremely aggressive. And yeah, here we have the classical Thumbelina situation in which the parents discuss what they should do, and we have Lucilla hearing what they say. And yeah, here they go to the woods.
And Sarah, let's talk about your style, because tell us about your professional background, or what did you study, or what are you more interested in when you work on illustration? Because we can see this is not a typical picture book or a classic picture book. It has a lot of handwriting for the dialogues, like a comic, but it's not a comic. So I think it's interesting that you explain us your style.
Yeah. So my background, actually, I graduated in Scienze della Comunicazione in Bologna, and then I studied illustration in Milan. But in general, in my practice, in general, I do comics, I do a lot of illustration for newspaper, and I don't know, I think I'm always in constant search for something new in the way I work. I get bored with myself very easily. So in this case, you specifically, since I won the Children's Book Fair with a comic book, actually, so you specifically asked to have a book that was not a comic book. On the other side, I still wanted to be able to integrate dialogues in the story, instead of having dialogues apart from the actual situation, like in a classical, so to say, picture book. So my struggle was to be able to combine writing and illustration in a certain way.
Yes.
And I feel, to me, this is very experimental. I hope it works well, even from the reading point of view. And I enjoyed every part of the book. I enjoyed writing, and I enjoyed, like, I think it could live fairly well even without illustration, the text. And like, it's not that I think this is the way I will work forever, but it was something that I I felt the urgency to do like that, to have a text, maybe like, because as I like picture books a lot, you know, I feel that most of the time the best thing for a picture book is to have text and images, sort of filling the gaps one another.
Yes.
But in this case, maybe actually, I think I did the opposite somehow. Like the text could live without images, and the images are so weird that maybe could become something else without the text. I don't know. But yeah, my concern was also to have this difference between when we are in the city and we have an external narrator, and then when we get to the woods and we only have dialogues. We don't have someone from outside telling us what's happening.
We can see it there, and your images about nature, which are really magical.
Thanks. And so I don't know, like it was very experimental to me.
And how was the contrast of colors? How did you work a lot on it? Because there is a very strong contrast of colors.
So I worked like part of it is done by hand, and then collaged it digitally. Some parts are just digital. Some other parts like maybe were one color originally, and then I digitally changed. It's just a really complete mess.
And let's talk about your style is not realistic, and it's not realistic, I think, because you don't want to show, in the case of human beings, you don't want to show, I think, a kind of iconography, like an official iconography of how should look a girl or the parents or whatever. Is there anything there that you can
like one of my concerns was to be able to create characters in which I cannot say that every kind of person can recognize themselves, but like trying to stay away from very classical representation of the human being.
Stereotypes. You don't want to work on the stereotypes, I guess.
Yeah, and also like it's a little thing, but since I work a lot for illustration for magazines and especially American magazines, I think that in my head is always very present the idea of race when I represent somebody. So I don't know if I managed, but I'm always thinking like if I draw something like that, if the child looks like that, how many people can recognize themselves in that? And when you get abstract, I think it gets easier for different kind of people to see themselves in that.
Yes.
At least I try.
Yes, no, but you are totally right. I think it's this is why I asked, because I think it's a very interesting point of view, and maybe people don't think about it if nobody tells them. So it's a very good reason for explaining your style as well.
It's that way of thinking is very present to me, and I don't know, at least I hope I try to do that. But yeah, on the other side, in this book there is a lot of experimentation just with design of things, like for the animals and the plants, I guess.
Also I think there is humor in the natural part of the book. Let's say there is humor. The first part is very dark because it's a dark story and sad, and then it's like blooming, and I don't know, the animals are very funny. The conversations they have, how do they have arguments between them or disagree on certain things.
In the second part, in the woods, it gets really silly, the discussion they have between them. are just very silly, and while the first part is definitely more dark, and when we get to the woods it gets really silly, and how they are shaped is also quite silly, I guess, most of the time. In most cases I was just working with shapes in order to make them sort of look like actual animals, but still being very abstract and absurd, basically.
So visually is let's say it's not an easy book, I would say. It is quite sophisticated, but I think it's also can be very funny, because it has a lot of details, no, in that you can just not see at a first sight. You have to really look carefully to each page in order to find everything. So I think it's a very, very rich way of, illustration. It's very narrative.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to ask you about, maybe you don't have now, but did you have some influence when you started to work as an illustrator?
I still have many influences, I guess. So when I started, like when I was younger and still studying, I guess one of the first things that shaped the way I think about images was like graphic design from Eastern Europe, from the 1940s, 30s till the 1950s, which I don't think that shows in this book, because this book is extremely rich, right? But like in I don't know, in the process of becoming what I am, that was I can clearly recognize like a part of my path in which I was working a lot on the design of the image and on the shapes, and try to also be very simple with shapes. So that's a huge influence that is still super present in me, because like illustration is one of my passions, so I'm constantly re-looking at things and re-studying things. But then in like, as I said, I get bored easily with what I do, with like the images I do. So I don't know, there is a lot of influences, I guess.
And for the making of the book, I don't know if the storyboard you have there on the screen is related to this story, or maybe it's another one you have. Can you explain us, well, how did you conceive it? Just
this
it's very interesting to see that, how.
Yeah, so this was
how did you develop everything?
Was the storyboard that I sent you, like the working on the book. So in the beginning it was just these drawings that are pretty close, I guess, to the final panels.
Yes.
And I was just writing the text on the side, but it took me a while. So I worked on the storyboard 2 summers ago. And I rented a house in Trapani for 22 days to work on it completely alone in the summer, and that worked really well. But then it took me a while to find the actual style of the illustrations, because I had never really worked this way. So it took me, I don't know, it took me a lot of experimenting to get to a point in which I was happy with the result. But yeah, I did all the writing and storyboarding first, which is also different from how I usually work, because most of the time if I write comics, I do a little bit of storyboarding, but at the same time I'm also working on the final panels. In this case, I did all the writing beforehand, and then in the autumn I started to work on the actual panels. So yeah.
And this is the end of the story, which is really, I think it's very, very strong, with this image of the tree at the end.
Yeah,
the family reunited again.
So the final image is the beginning of their becoming part of the nature. And Lucilla that turns into 100 insects.
Okay, so Sarah, can you stop sharing your book in order that I can see you? Because I wanted to tell you, of course, it's not a very smart comment, but I think you already thought about it a long time ago. This story was a kind of premonition of what happened later.
Oh my God.
In some way, it was like what you were criticizing. Of course, it was in another way, but it's really has been in headlines for all last year about nature, how nature became greener again without us moving around the world.
I feel that it's really easy to kind of foresee that, because it's so obvious that the way we live is really not okay. So it's not me being smart, it's just extremely obvious that
it was like a premonition. Of course, it's been happening. We are told since I don't know how many years that we are spending a lot of money and becoming very like a problem. Let's say it's a small word for nature, but really thinking that the book was published in March 2020, it sounds really like you are kind of Nostradamus.
And I don't know if we're able to do what Lucilla's family does, which is like becoming something really different. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that, but
and this is a more personal question. How have you coped with the pandemic on the creative side?
So it was pretty bad because I found myself in my small apartment in Milan, which is also the reason why I'm not in Milan now. So before the pandemic, I was used to travel, to be able to be very free, sincerely, with the way I live. Like for me, the more important thing about the way I work was to be able to travel with my work. So be kind of light from that point of view, only use a laptop computer. I never had a desktop computer. So like that like freedom in general was and still is very important to me. So in the beginning it was really, really difficult, and I think it was quite bad in the beginning from a creative point of view. Like now it kind of became a little bit more normal, and it did change me. So I think I am different from what I was before that. Like I am still myself, but like you have to adapt, and to adapt you have to change a little bit. So like from a personal point of view, it was a little bit complicated, and from a creative point of view, it was just extremely bad, to be honest. I'm not one of those that needed the time to stay home and read books and watch movies, because I already did that. And so like it was just bad. To be honest, from a creative point of view, in the beginning, it was just completely bad. The first month, I think I wasn't even able to read or watch a movie, because I was only thinking about how weird and how dystopic the whole situation was. The idea that the government could tell me not to leave the house felt like the first month was just, I was just overwhelmed with the idea of living a completely dystopic situation. But yeah, now I think I found my way around it. So like, for instance, now I left Milan, and for the next 4 months, I will be 1 month in Venice, 1 month in Catania, and I just won't be in Milan.
Fresh air, whatever.
Yeah. I think I found my ways around it, but it was just bad. Like there is no positive side effect, and I'm not even trying, to find some.
Yes, I think we have, been very affected by what has happened and by our losing our freedom in every way, I guess. And also, but I wanted to ask you that because I think, well, we are all different, but people who work in creativity, I think it's even more complicated because it's your way of living. It's not a hobby. And I think I wanted to ask you about it because I suppose a lot of people will feel described by what you said. And also about not reading, even if you like to read, because I think our head was so overwhelmed by what was happening and all these messages and internet and friends calling you. We were hyper connected, I think.
Exactly. It was really overwhelming in the beginning. And I also actually miss festivals and fairs a lot. I loved, meeting my colleagues. Like, I feel like I belong to a international community of people being interested and being visually driven and being passionate about the same things, right? So it's not like, of course I have my community in Milan, but I feel like I belong to a wider community of people, and I do miss not being able to get in touch with that anymore. And I still miss it a lot, actually. So I really hope we'll be able to do fairs and festival again next year, because I really miss it.
Yes, because Bologna Online I think it's a very good event. They have a lot of very interesting things this year, but for people who have been to Bologna Book Fair, I think we all want to go back there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I also get to meet friends that I haven't been meeting in ages, and it's really special. I feel like it's quite a privilege to have such a strong passion and have such a big community of people that can share it with you. I think it's a privilege to have that. So yeah, being in the fair and getting to meet people in person is really different, even though like the event, even like of course this video, for instance, everyone can see it. If we were at the cafe in Bologna, this event would only be for the people present in the fair. It would be smaller. So maybe you do have the chance to reach a wider audience online. But then maybe I care more about meeting my friends than reaching a wider audience.
Yeah, let's hope to meet there next year for sure. And one last question, Sarah. I don't know if it has an answer for you, so I want to ask you. what tips would you give to someone who is starting as an illustrator, who is thinking to start, maybe to start as an illustrator?
So I also teach. So that question is something that I think about very often. So my suggestion would be to be very curious and search for things they like in the physical world, because one thing that I notice a lot lately is that younger people tend to build their visual references through the internet. So sometimes, no, not sometimes, like most of the times, it's maybe they
start, a little bit tricky. No?
Yeah, it's tricky, and they don't. Maybe they completely miss the most important things in visual culture, and they start to follow artists that are just very commercial and maybe have a lot of followers on Instagram. So it becomes kind of a patchy way to build your visual world, and a little bit and a very shallow way to build your visual world. So maybe one thing that I would say is, like, I was talking about it today with some colleagues, teachers, one very simple thing is maybe to go to bookstores to look for books instead of going on Instagram and looking for artists. Because if you like photography, maybe if you go to whatever bookstore and you look at the section of photography, you will surely find the fathers of photography there. And maybe on the internet, you don't. It's so confusing. It's such a confusing experience.
Do you feel that young illustrators are more focused in contemporary?
They're not focused, I think.
Because we think is a problem.
They're not. I wish they. I mean, not all of them. I actually do enjoy teaching in certain school more than others, because the experience of sharing your knowledge with certain students is amazing. So it's not. I don't want to be generic about it, but what I see when people are still a little bit confused is that they don't focus. Actually, it's very generic the way they get to build their own imaginary, and so I don't know. I'm not even sure it's a good advice, but maybe searching for things in the physical world can help somehow. I hope. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but what I see is that searching for things only in the digital world is a very confusing experience for many students. So yeah.
And they should come to Bologna. Bologna Book Fair.
I think the exhibition in the Children Book Fair in Bologna is like the best illustration exhibition in the world, because the jury is usually amazing and they select projects that have such a wide variety of languages. It's not commercial at all. It's not connected to the commercial world. So I think it's so inspiring to see that selection. Yeah, definitely so. Yeah.
Yes, and also I suppose that they can meet people they admire and have talks, which is very enriching.
Yeah, and you have
books.
And the exhibitions in town. Yeah. All that physical world is.
And all the conference they give. Yeah, I think it's Well, I'm not an illustrator, but I would recommend to anyone to go there.
Yeah.
We can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you again, even if it's online. I hope to meet you next year in Bologna. Really, I have time for a coffee or something.
Yeah, sure. It will happen.
In the meantime, enjoy Venice. I will invite you. Venice. Well, but it's I know it's well deserved that you move there. So enjoy the town, enjoy the time there, and if I don't see you, have a nice summer.
You too. Thank you so much for the chat.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to all people who are watching us. And I just wanted to tell them, to the illustrators who are 35 years old or under 35 years old, to please send us their work, and well, maybe they can be the next award winners. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.